Hey, everybody. This is Tamiya Robles. I am your credit repair specialist, expert. I am the host of my podcast, Coast to Coast Credit. I'm the owner of my company, FixMyCreditNow50.com. I am also the president of NAREB's nonprofit local board, the High Desert. And I'm here with my second vice president of the same chapter, Sean Rogers, who is also a mortgage loan officer, and we are here to do our weekly Ask a Mortgage Loan Officer segment. So, Sean.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How you doing? My name is Sean Rogers, mortgage broker, rainmaker, whatever you want to call me. Les, we're going to start talking about another topic that was fresh on my mind that I want to make sure that everybody knows about. So we're going to talk about the importance of a good credit score, how it affects your mortgage rate and terms, and what kind of loan that you get. Okay, very important. So please listen up to what I have to say. All right, so first things first. Now, everybody knows that the better score that you have, right, the better maybe rate or payment you'll get, right? The worse score you'll have, the worst rate payment you'll probably receive. Okay. Now, remember, depending upon what loan type you're putting yourself into, that can determine your rates, payments, max purchase price, so forth and so on. So let's jump into that. Let's start with what a mortgage loan officer, your bank, your lender is going to determine what is a good score. So let's look at a breakdown here. So check it out. So if you have a score from, we'll say 500 up to 580 to 619, in that bracket is going to be your worst case scenario pricing, worst case pricing, if you will. Okay. Do not expect to get the advertised interest rates. Do not expect to get the advertised monthly payments. You are not going to get that. At that point, with that kind of score, you're barely squeaking by for a full approval. And in some cases, you may even get approved, depending upon what loan you're doing. Remember, from 580 down to, or 579 down to 500, that's FHA territory. And yes, with a VA loan, you can go below 500 on your credit score. Other factors apply, which we'll talk about too. Okay, once you go to 580 to 620, all right, that's 3.5% down on their FHA, right? And then once you crack 620, usually it makes for slightly easier approvals under the FHA flag, along with triggering or kicking in down payment assistance programs. Side note, you can also get down payment assistance programs at a 580 credit score, but you're going to pay dearly for it. And I'll discuss that later on too. All right, let's take a step back. So you guys already know what scores are required when it comes to buying a home for conventional, FHA, VA, USDA. You already know these things. What people don't realize is that even though you meet the required score, doesn't mean you're going to automatically qualify for the program. A lot of us forget that your credit profile is what's important. Let me explain. You can always have a 580 credit score, right? But we got to ask ourselves, how did we get to 580 in the first place? Why? Why are we there? All right. Even if we climbed up from the pits of 500 and now we're at 580, why are we there? That's because at some point in time in the past, usually 12 to 24 months, you were late, you got a collection account, you got a charge off, bankruptcy, whatever the case may be. But something happened to you in the past 12 or 24 months or longer to give you that score. So back again to credit profile, okay? So when we're looking at your credit profile, we're looking at, on FHA, usually the last 24 months of your life. So we're going to look at the past 2 years, okay, and say, hey, Carol, you've paid your credit cards on time. You were late maybe a year and a half ago, all right? So or you had a charge off a year and a half ago, or you had a collection account that popped on your credit report a year and a half ago, whatever the case may be, right? But the main thing we look at is what you've done with yourself in the past 24 months. You may hear the term reestablished credit also. What reestablished credit means is that for all intents and purposes, for the past 12 months or 24 months, you've been clean. You've been a good person, a good credit-based human being. So in other words, you've paid your car payments on time. You've paid your credit cards on time. Any other loans you have that's reporting to your credit, you've paid it on time. We're not considering utility bills in this manner, but everything else you've paid on time. Okay. So let's talk about what happens when I do see data that shows you've been late in the past 12 to 24 months under the FHA flag. Check it out. If I'm looking at your credit report, okay, and I see that you've been late, maybe you were late in January of 2024. Once again, this is in the past 12 months. What I'm not saying is going to automatically disqualify you for a mortgage approval. It may kick you out of an automated approval. That may happen. However, it doesn't mean you're going to be automatically disqualified. Okay. Now, generally, if we have multiple compounding factors, we're making a mortgage decision. So let's say you've got a late in January and you've got a 580 credit score. You have maybe a higher debt to income ratio. And let's say you don't have much in the way of assets. So extra money, an asset is extra money that you have left over outside of paying closing costs and down payment. 1 month of reserve is equal to one full mortgage payment. Let's say you have all these things but you don't have reserves, you have a lower credit score, the late payment. Now we have what we call layered risk. So we have risk on top of risk on top of risk. The chances are you may not get approved. You may not get an automated approval. Each risk factor decreases your chance of getting a loan approval. So what you want to do is do what you can, control what you can control to lower those risk factors. Here's an example. Okay, I've got a high debt to income ratio. I'm going to either A, get my debt paid down, okay, or B, I'm going to decrease my max purchase price and bring it under a certain amount. If I do that, I've eliminated a layered risk. Option 2, I'm going to save up some money. I'm going to save some more money for reserves. Remember, a reserve can be checking, savings account, stocks, bonds, CDs, IRAs, any kind of liquid asset that can be liquidated in case of emergency. That is a reserve. So I'm going to save some money up in my checking account. I'm going to save something in my savings account, right? Usually if I show sometimes 1, 2, 3 months of payments, set aside an account and have a lower credit score, that can help get an automated approval, okay? So keep that in mind. Trying to go into a home and buying a home when you have high layered risk. Once again, that's a high debt to income ratio, lower credit score, okay? No reserves, right? Or low reserves, right? These are all layered risk items. You want to do what you can to eliminate as many layered risks as possible. Let me give you another example when it comes to the credit profile. There's one quick thing that people are missing a lot here. So check this out. So let's say you paid all your bills on time, but a collection account popped up on your credit report because you didn't check your mailbox 1 month or whatever, right? That still counts as a derogatory action in the 24 preceding months or 12 preceding months. That can hurt you, okay? Now, if you do see that pop up on your credit report, you can contact Tamiya. She can help you get it removed, or you can pay it in full as a pay to delete, okay? But we need to see that it doesn't exist. So basically, it's wiped from the credit report, all right? Those things can throw you off. Now, also, there are ways that you can kind of trick the system. Let me explain how to trick the system. Now, everybody knows, if you've been doing your mortgage research, you may know that people say no disputed accounts. Do not dispute accounts on your credit report. This is true. We don't want you to do that. But let me give you a tip for FHA. So let's say that you have a bunch of small little collection accounts and charge-offs on the credit report, okay? And let's say that we can dictate and realize that we can determine and realize that these accounts are affecting your credit score. Now, what you can do, if these accounts do not reach a cumulative balance of more than $1,000, you can dispute all of them. And when you dispute items in the credit report, it can mask that derogatory item from the scoring model. Let me give you an example. Let's say you have a collection account with AT&T for $500. You got an account with T-Mobile, a collection account for $400. You can dispute those two items. It'll mask those two items from your scoring algorithm, and it can potentially boost your score up. Okay, as long as, and this is FHA only, as long as we see that the total amount or the balances of these accounts don't exceed $1,000, you're good to go. Now, on conventional financing, this may not be the case. Sometimes Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae might detect or would detect that you have disputes and automatically refer the file or decline the file. Okay, don't want to do that. But if you can go FHA or FHA is the route to go, and this applies to you, it might be a good idea to see if you can dispute those items if the cumulative balance is beneath $1,000. If it goes over that, you can pay it down, then dispute, or you cannot dispute at all. Your choice. Now let's also talk about the VA loan for veterans and active duty service members. Okay. VA loans are extremely flexible, right? You can do some amazing things when it comes to credit. The VA handbook has no direction on actual score required. There is no score required on a VA home loan. All right. However, there are certain guidelines that have to follow. I've done a lot of loans with credit scores below 500 and below 550 on a VA home purchase. However, they want to make sure the last 12 months of your life are clean for the most part. Okay, so what I mean by that is they want to see what they call reestablished credit. Okay, reestablished, the definition from in the VA handbook is 12 months of a clean payment history. Okay, so even if you have a 480 credit score, you've had a clean 12 months on most of your accounts or all of your accounts, then VA will overlook everything else. Now, remember, your pricing, your rates aren't going to be the best, right? It's not going to be good. However, you will still be able to use your VA benefits to get into a home. Certain lenders have certain rules. Remember, even though the VA says nothing, the VA does not issue the loan. The VA guarantees the loan. It's up to the lender to determine risk or their risk appetite, what they want to take on. Then what they'll do, they'll say, okay, we require a 620 score or a 640 or a 600 or a 580 or 550, right? Each lender or bank can be different. But if your lender doesn't have any overlays and they write directly to the VA handbook, then they can go down below a 500 score, okay, or a 620 score, whatever the score that you need, they can probably reach it as long as we have reestablished credit for the past 12 months. That's number one thing people miss. They stop paying payments or they miss bills or whatever. Now recognize that, you're at a 480 for a reason, right? You did something to get there, right? So there's a strong chance that in the past 12 months, something was late. But if you can give it a 12 months where you weren't late, you can probably get your VA loan approved. Now, there are some exceptions to the rule. So what I mean is like, let's say that maybe 6 months ago, you got yourself into a nasty accident, okay? And you were hospitalized and you had no way of making your payments on time and you were late on a couple of accounts, okay? Now, the underwriter has to determine that this thing that happened to you was outside of your control and you couldn't control it and you missed the payment, right? And it has to be documented because the VA will come back and ask that underwriter, why did you approve this loan sheet when this person had a late payment on the credit report? And she or he has to have documentation or evidence as to her justification of approving this loan when it had a late payment in the past 12 months. So keep in mind that if you have a valid excuse, once again, you're hospitalized, it was a bank error, it was a lender error, right? Something that was out of your control that you couldn't prevent, right? Something that will not work. I'm going through divorce and we were fighting about the bills. Nope. I didn't get the bill in the mail. Nope. I forgot to pay it. Nope. I was fighting with the company about the amount I had to pay on my credit card. Nope. Doesn't matter. That's something you could have controlled. You could have still paid that bill, but you did not. Okay. It has to be something that's into your control or out of your control that we can bypass or overlook. The higher the score, the better on a VA loan, the best pricing. VA loan rates, prices are better than FHA and also conventional too. Okay. So if you want a really, really good rate, get your score up as high as you possibly can. Tips on improving your credit score and maintaining it throughout the process. This is very important. Okay. Because if, let's say that maybe, I don't know, you call me up and we get you pre-approved for a certain amount. And you say, you know what, Sean, I can't buy until maybe 6 months from now. Remember, the credit report that we use is good for about technically 90 days. It's really good for 120 days. But when we submit the loan to the lender, it needs to have at least 30 days remaining on the credit report. So that's why we say 90 days. Okay. But let's say you have to step outside of that, or your pre-approval expires outside of that time frame, right? What we've got to do is get a new credit report for you if you cross that threshold. So it has to be another pull for the new pre-approval or updated pre-approval, right? So Tamiya, can you tell us what people can do if they have to wait a little bit longer? What do they need to do between, we'll say, month 1 and month 4 or 5 if their credit report expires?
Okay. So what they can do is just request another one. What I use a third party. So it doesn't expire with me as long as you're paying into that third party software. So for example, I use Smart Credit, which is a competitor of Identity IQ. Some people might be familiar with Identity IQ. So every month you pay, you're seeing a brand new credit report. Okay. Now, we can share that with whomever. Like, say, for example, you want to see a copy of it. It's always current, it's always up to date. But the difference from what you look at and what we look at are is a noticeable difference. You look at a FICO, the report is in Vantage, but it does have the information that you need on there. But to simply answer your question, as long as they're buying into it or paying into it, they'll be able to see a brand new credit report.
Okay. Okay, good. So that makes sense. So essentially, guys, if you know we're buying, but we're delayed in buying for whatever odd reason, whatever the case may be, right? A couple of things I want to tell you do. Number one, and we should already all know this, do not buy anything new using your credit if you can help it. Like I said a couple of weeks ago, hey, you know what? If you get into a car accident or your car, takes a crap on you, you gotta buy a new car, call your loan officer first, have them run the numbers for you, make sure the payments are similar to your old car payment, and then you probably will be good to go, right? But if you just want a new car, just because, don't do it to yourself. Hopefully that back seat has enough room because that's where you'll be sleeping as opposed to your home. Keep that in mind. Okay. Now, also during this, we want to make sure that we're not continuously checking our credit, right? We want to maybe use some of these soft pull softwares so we can observe our score to make sure everything's staying tight. Also, keep our credit card balances low or as low as possible. Remember, the magic number, Tamiya, if I'm wrong, correct me, but magic number usually is 30% or lower. Okay. You want to make sure that those credit card balances are no more than 30% of the limit. Once you get at or below that threshold, your score should start to creep up, right? Paying a card off and having a zero balance sometimes can adversely affect you if you have a lower or I would say shorter credit life or credit history. I've seen that a lot too. So Maya, can you touch on that really quick too?
Yeah, so I actually want to rewind just a teeny bit because you said 30%. So the difference between paying 30% or paying your credit cards down to 30% utilization as opposed to 15% utilization is paying interest. That's the difference. You can still get an effective jump in your credit score if you do bring your utilization down to 30%. To bring it down even more and not pay interest, you want to be at 15% utilization or less. So Sean's saying 30, it's 30. Because keep in mind, you're trying to get a home. We're not looking for perfection here, right? So do what you got to do. Plus, it'll probably be easier and faster for you to bring your cars down to 30% than it would be 15%, since a lot of you guys are trying to purchase a home fairly quickly. Now, what was the next question? 15, the utilization, and what did you say? What did you say after that, Sean, that you wanted me
I
to comment on?
I think the paying it off to zero.
Okay, that's right. Paying it off to zero. Paying it off to zero, I don't know how it affects a mortgage, but paying your cards down to zero can trigger the bank, and it makes them feel like you don't need credit or need the line of credit, and they could potentially shut your card off. So I always tell people you don't need to pay it off, just pay it down and still utilize the cards. I was speaking to a family the other day, and one of the family members said, "Oh, don't worry. I paid all my cards off and then I put them aside. I'm not going to use them for months." That's not good. Like that's not good at all, because you're not using their card. So what I said was, even if you're getting some gum or I don't know, put some gas in a car and then just use it and pay it off is better than zeroing out your card.
So on conventional financing and mortgage rates, remember, conventional financing, tit for tat will have higher interest rates than your FHA loan. So it'll appear higher, even if somebody has a 740 credit score, you know, uh, and your FHA person has a 740 credit score, for example. The conventional rate will be higher. That's just how it is. Okay, rates are higher on the conventional side because there's more subsidies going to FHA loans backed by the federal government, right, as opposed to conventional. Now, doesn't necessarily mean that it's better to go FHA as opposed to conventional. There are situations long term that conventional is always more beneficial. Okay, also depending upon your situation with your income and with your property type that you're buying. Some properties you find out there may not accept FHA financing. As you can recall, back in the great refinance boom that we had during COVID, or purchase boom that we had during COVID, getting your FHA offer accepted was extremely difficult as opposed to a conventional offer. So if a seller of a home happened to get, in one hand an FHA offer and the other they got a conventional, and they were similar as far as offer type, offer amount, closing cost concessions asked for, close of escrow date, any contingency they may have waived. If they were similar hand in hand, 9 times out of 10, the seller would choose to go with the conventional offer. Okay. There's a stigma back in the day, maybe, I don't know. I wasn't around back in those days, but back in the day, I think to my, what happened was that FHA was considered to be kind of like a subprime loan, or kind of like a bad credit loan, or maybe a poor person loan. I don't know. Not too sure. Right. So it was to a certain extent frowned upon. Right. So they would push conventional as opposed to FHA, but that's not really the case. FHA and conventional have their benefits, they have their pros and cons, but I don't think it should be known as a poor person loan or whatever. Right. I don't think that's the case. But I would say that when it comes to your credit profile and conventional financing, to achieve decent, better advertised interest rates on the conventional credit profile or for a conventional loan, you want to have a spectacular, clean credit profile if at all possible. Okay. The higher the score, the better. It's extremely credit score driven. Okay. So, like, let me give you an example. On an FHA loan, a FICO between 660 and 680, or between 660 and 700, has really not much of a change difference in pricing on an FHA loan. But on conventional, between 660 and 700, it's a huge gap in pricing. It gets pointless to go conventional if you have a credit score that's below a 680 due to the pricing and the add-ons, if you're not a first-time home buyer. So if you are going the conventional route, or need to go the conventional route, you want to make sure your credit score is as high as possible. Back in the day, when I say back in the day, I mean like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, a good score was 700 even, 700, right? Not anymore, right? The bracket is now moved to 740, 760. If you're in that range, now you get top tier pricing, right? 720, 715 is the new 680, okay? So the goalpost is moved for a lot of people. So instead of thinking you were king at 700 or 710 or 715, now you're kind of mid-high level, not all the way there, Once you crack 740, 760, sometimes 780 for certain lenders, then you get premium pricing. You get A1 tier pricing, whatever you want to call it, right? But yeah, you want to have the higher scores and the cleaner profiles. And remember, for those of us that may have a high credit score, and when I say high in this instance, I mean like a 720, but you still may have had late payments on your credit report in the past 12 months going conventional, right? Uh, you can still get declined for your mortgage. Okay. Remember, conventional is extremely credit driven, right? It doesn't mean you'll get an automated approval just because your score is a certain number. Doesn't mean that. So if you do have those late payments, it may have to push you to go FHA. Okay, so those are all the items I feel that you want to look at when it comes to credit. Remember, you want to keep yourself clean as possible. 12 to 24-month clean pay history, right? If you can go FHA or VA or government financing, do what you can to keep yourself clean in the past 12 months, right? Remember, in the event you have collection accounts, you can dispute those if the cumulative balance does not go over $1,000 on the credit report. Okay, if they do, you got to pay that balance down. And if you don't, it'll flip to a manual underwrite and you may not qualify under manual underwrite options. We'll discuss that at a later time. Remember, for premium pricing or best pricing on conventional financing, you want to have the higher score. The 660, 680, 700 won't get you the best pricing. Once you crack 640, 760, 780, at that point, then you may have a chance to get the better pricing when it comes to conventional financing. All right, now T, you want to take this away?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Sean. Thanks for sharing all of that information. I know a lot of people really needed to hear that. But just real quick, I just wanted to add a little bit to this episode on a credit perspective, on a credit side. Sometimes people ask me questions that I can't necessarily answer because I'm not a mortgage representative, as you guys know, but I do hear a lot of similar concerns. One of them is how long is this going to take? I saw Sean, I spoke with him, he said what needed to be done. I watched you guys on the live, and I'm just coming to you first, like what needs to be done? How long is this going to take? So, a lot of you guys think that because you have a lot of stuff on your credit report, that it's going to take a really long time to purchase a home, and you may want to buy a home within the next couple months. You do not need a perfect credit report. If you hear what Sean is saying, there's certain things that can be excused. There's certain ways to certain things that are important and unimportant. You don't need a perfect credit profile to purchase a home. So that shortens up your time. That's why I love it when you guys see Sean first. So Sean can talk to you and then he comes back to us, has a little group email, and itemizes what needs to be done. It doesn't need to be perfect. Okay. So keep that in mind. But be sure to not freak out. Don't think all is lost when it comes to your credit score. We're not expecting you to know everything. We're the professionals here. Okay. I strongly recommend that you see Sean first. Sometimes you guys come to me first and I have to send you to Sean and you come back to me. It's totally fine. But definitely bring down your utilization. That's one thing you can control. And if you're looking for fast results, you can definitely get them that way as well. But yeah, I just wanted to add my little 2 cents and cosign to what you already said. But for the most part, hopefully you guys take heed to that, because I think that stops a lot of you guys from applying, and you don't have to stop. Keep going. We got you. Okay. But we'll just wrap this up, you guys. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to check out next week live and the week after that, and the Sunday after that. Be sure to check us out on our platforms, our Facebook platforms. Check out the description below. If you want or you're interested in purchasing a home, Sean's link is in the description. If you need to schedule a free 30-minute consultation with me, check out the description. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. Definitely comment, you guys, because we want to know if you guys have any questions, if you agree, disagree, what your thoughts are. Like, we do read the comments and we do interact with y'all. All right. So we just want to, and follow us on Facebook for sure. In the meantime, I'm going to sign off. And then I'll have Sean close us out. But I wish you guys the best of luck on your credit journey. Sean?
Awesome. Once again, guys, thanks for having me out today. Talked about credit scores and how it affects your mortgage and the importance of a good credit score. Remember, don't forget, don't be afraid to apply or ask questions. I'm not going to punch you in the face if you get declined for a loan, right? Just apply. Remember, when we do apply, we do a soft pull on the credit so I can see what's going on. The soft pull does not affect you, not a full inquiry, right? Do a soft pull. Let's take a look, get you a game plan together. And then if you're ready to go, great. If you're not, we'll show you how to get there, which is the most important part. But once again, thanks for having me, guys, and I'll see you next time.